What if I told you there's a museum in Maryland dedicated to a lesser-known cryptid that's described as looking like a chicken crossed with a dragon choking on an octopus? What's up? I'm Taylor. Welcome to Let's Go Fright Seeing. I bought this book, The United States of Cryptids, and have done a deep dive into all things cryptid. The lore goes so deep, and I'm having so much fun learning about so many different creatures. So you can expect to see a lot of cryptid content this year. First up, we are going to Maryland, where cryptid legends are aplenty. Today's spooky beast is the Snallygaster. I first heard about the Snallygaster while reading this book, The United States of Cryptids by J.W. Ocker, and then I went down a whole rabbit hole learning about this strange legend. So how the hell did a whole museum get built to celebrate this creature that you've probably never heard of? I would love to tell you, but first, we have to go back a couple of centuries to start our story. An article by Colin Dickey on Atlas Obscura says German immigrants living in the Frederick County of Maryland, quote, brought their folklore and superstitions, both ghosts and the beliefs that the mountains were inhabited by dragons, end quote. We've all heard of stories about the terrors living in Appalachia, and the Snallygaster is in good company over there. In the early 1700s, these people were allegedly terrorized by what they called the Snallygaster. I've seen a couple of different translations, including that it means the quick ghost, or quick spirit, or fast ghost. Over the years, this creature has been renamed the Snallygaster. The first descriptions of the Snallygaster spoke of a big flying beast with one eye that was half reptile, half bird, with features of a siren and a beak with sharp teeth. Sometimes people also said it had tentacles. There's a lot going on there. The story goes that the Snallygaster would swoop in and pluck its victims, sometimes humans, sometimes just chickens, off the ground using its sharp talons and carry them away to suck their blood. But don't worry, there is a way to protect yourself and your farm animals. According to the legend, you can paint a hex sign on your house or barn, which is a 7-pointed star that keeps the Snallygaster at bay. Also, just to clarify, this is part of the legend and a fun folklore tale. These hex symbols are also known as barn quilts or barn symbols, and they have a lot of different meanings, but one of them is that they are to keep the Snallygaster away. Snallygaster sightings died down over the years, but eventually our girl Snally was brought back. During the explosion of the Jersey Devil legends, Maryland was like, hey, watch it. We also have a scary winged beast in our woods. They did their absolute best to bring the Snallygaster to the same level as the Jersey Devil, but seeing as this is the first time I've ever heard of the Snallygaster, it clearly didn't work, but maybe it can. I'm still rooting for our girl. In 1909, less than a month after the Jersey Devil sighting started, Maryland newspapers about the Snallygaster were selling like hotcakes. Do hotcakes even sell that well these days? That's such a weird expression. Anyways, the newspapers were selling like Stanley mugs. Okay, that's how quick they were going off the shelves. That's much better. The Valley Register reported a flying creature attacked a man named Bill Gifferson. Bill was allegedly scooped up by the Snallygaster, who drank his blood and then dumped his body in a ravine. After that story, dozens of other sightings were reported to the newspaper. This newspaper also claimed that the Smithsonian was willing to pay big money to anyone who could catch the creature and give its hide to the Smithsonian. Another piece of the urban legend of it all is that President Theodore Roosevelt was going to go hunt the Snallygaster. The story continued to grow and become as big and monstrous as the Snallygaster herself. The pressure was on for people to capture or at least get a picture of this mysterious creature. Love all of that. Here's what I don't love, and one thing that we do need to touch on because it's a very unfortunate and really awful part of this legend, but it's important. And that is the fact that during the 1909 resurgence, the horrible, hideous racists had to come in and ruin everything like they always do, and take this fun and silly urban legend and turn it into something awful. In 1975, a folklorist named Gladys Marie Fry wrote a book called Night Riders in Black Folk History, where she shows a number of ways that people would weaponize superstitions as a form of control. In her book, Gladys Marie Fry said, quote, the primary aim of such pressure was to discourage unauthorized movements of blacks, especially at night, by making them afraid of encountering supernatural beings. From the post-Civil War period to World War I, the method helped to stem the tide of black movement from rural farming communities in the South to the urban industrial centers of the North, end quote. Sarah Cooper, who runs the museum I mentioned at the beginning of this video, doesn't try to sweep any part of this legend under the rug. In the Atlas Obscura article, she said, quote, a big thing for me was watching memes like Peppy the Frog get turned into racist dog whistles, end quote. She worries that the Snallygaster could easily become part of that. She said, quote, I feel like part of making the museum and part of acknowledging the ugly history prevents people from making it into a racist dog whistle. I don't ever want it to become something ugly again. I want it to be something interesting and something we can learn from, end quote. And I love her take on it. It's important and it is a part of the bigger legend, and it's also important that we talk about these things instead of sweeping them under the rug so that we don't allow history to repeat itself. The legend of the Snallygaster sank back into the woods and was forgotten about for quite a few years. That is, until Prohibition rolled around and people started blaming the Snallygaster for weird noises in the woods. The weird noises were coming from people making backwoods moonshine, hidden away from people enforcing the whole no alcohol thing. The new rumor about the Snallygaster was that it was attracted to the scent of moonshine. Sadly, the tale of the Snallygaster came to a close on December 12, 1932, when the Register announced that our beloved dragon bird octopus fell into a 2,500-gallon vat of moonshine when the fumes intoxicated it, and it fell directly into the boiling liquid, thus ending our beloved Snallygaster. There was obviously some kind of a big commotion in the woods. The moonshiners ran for it before the Prohibition officers could catch them in the act of moonshine making, and allegedly 2 officers, George T. Danforth and Charles E. Cushwa, saw the bones of the Snallygaster. The rest had been dissolved because of the moonshine, allegedly, and Danforth said to the newspaper reporter, quote, "Imagine our feeling when our eyes feasted on the monster submerged in the liquor vat," end quote. Monster bones or not, they weren't going to let anyone or anything stand in the way of making that country dry, so they surrounded the place with 560 pounds of dynamite and blew it up. R.I.P. to the Snallygaster and that backwoods moonshine. The Snallygaster hasn't been spotted since, but the legend still lives on. Sarah Cooper's dreams of a Snallygaster festival and museum are coming true, and you can actually follow the American Snallygaster Museum on Instagram. They do pop-up events and have cool merch and stuff like that. The Snallygaster has also made its mark on a couple of businesses in Maryland. From the Dragon Distillery, which is the first distillery in Frederick County, take that, Prohibition. They do tours and tastings of their food, and they have an incredible cocktail menu that looks just divine. Also, this is a woman-owned distillery that is themed because the owners love D&D. I want to go to there. They do murder mystery parties and themed drag shows and bingo nights. It's got me thinking, what if I just fly to Maryland? There is also a Snallygaster ice cream made by the South Mountain Creamery that's peanut butter flavored ice cream with caramel swirl, peanut butter cups, and pretzels. It sounds delicious. If you're ever in Maryland, you gotta go do a whole Snallygaster themed day. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow me on Instagram and or TikTok, if it still exists. But that's where you can find all of these spooky cryptid things and horror books, and it's spooky season all year round here, okay? Whether this is your first video or your 10th, I appreciate you for being here, and I will see you soon with more spooky content.